Hi there and welcome to another Sunday Sunshine show that's brought to you every Sunday morning from myself, Tina and Maria. And this is a collaboration that we've been doing for the last 3 years, and every week we choose a different topic. And this week we're going to be talking about our teenage years, and for me that was the 1980s. So first let me introduce you to Tina and Maria. So I was born in 1969 and I was born in a town called Swindon, and that's where I stayed right up until I was almost 20. So all my teenage years were spent in Swindon, except for the summer holidays that I used to go to London to visit my aunts and uncles. But let's talk about a typical Saturday for me as a teenager. Now on my weekends, I used to go on bike rides. I used to love going out for miles and miles and miles on a bike ride, or I'd hop on a bus and go out to our local park called Lydiard Millicent. It was a big stately home in some huge grounds, and I used to just go hang out there, go for walks. I used to go to my brother's house, who was already married when I was a teenager, and he had a dog, and I'd ask if I could go walk her. And that pretty much was my weekends until I turned 16, when I got my first job. And my first job was in a record store, and yeah, we sold records and cassette tapes. I don't think 16, we may have had CDs then, I can't quite remember. Now up until the age of 16, my home time would have been when the street lights came on. If you wasn't home when the street lights come on, believe me, you got into trouble. If you didn't come home on a Saturday when the street lights come on, you didn't get to go out on a Sunday. So you best believe we made it home in time. Now, if I remember rightly, my home time once I hit 16 was 10 o'clock. And I had quite a lot of freedom, but I was a really responsible child. If I knew I was going to be late, I always used to contact my parents and let them know. And that would involve going to a telephone box, putting some coins in the machine and calling my mum and dad and saying, I'm going to be 10 minutes late, or the bus is late, or I missed the bus, now I'm going to have to walk, you know, whatever the case may be. But I always let my parents know where I was. So I think that's why they gave me so much freedom, because I was a responsible kid. My fashion back in the 80s, so I do remember that I did wear a lot of neon colours, and I knew how to sew back then. So on a weekend, sometimes I would have my mum take me to the market stall, and I'd buy a couple of meters of material, and I'd make a really simple blouse. It was just a round neck with no sleeves, or very small cap sleeves, and it was just cotton, and it was the leopard print that was black and neon yellow, or black and neon blue, or black and neon bright pink. And I had 3 of those tops that I would wear on rotation all the time. And my hair, I think my hair was straight and short back then, but what I did used to do was colour my hair, and I was only allowed to use those little sachets, and I think they were only like 10p or 15p, and they lasted 3 washes, and they had a really unique weird scent that it wasn't a good scent. And I would get the dye all over my hands because I wouldn't wear gloves, and I'd end up with red hands for about a week, because I tend to do, it was red or copper, I would colour my hair all the time. So the type of music I used to listen to was pretty much pop. I did like Madonna back then in the 80s. Human League, that was a big one. I used to love the Human League. And Yazoo. Oh my gosh, who else? I like Culture Club as well. But I didn't go to any concerts when I was a child. Musical Youth came to Swindon and played at the Oasis, and all my school friends went, but I didn't go. However, what was it, on a Sunday? The top 40 used to come on, and I would record the top 40. On a cassette tape. I had a little square cassette tape that you put the cassette in one side, and it was a round speaker on the other, and you would sit there and you would literally time it with 2 fingers. I think it was like a stop. You had to press the stop and the pause at the same time on mine. I know it was two buttons, and you would try and time it to not get that DJ talking. And sometimes he would start a song and then he would talk about 30 seconds into the song and that was infuriating. You'd hit stop, you hit play again, and you had to time it just right to make it seamless. Anyway, that was a Sunday. I think that was a Sunday evening, early evening, about 6 o'clock, wasn't it? I think so. And I actually still listen to the 80s music on Spotify. If you go to Spotify and just type in 80s music, there's several different channels that will play music. But I wasn't really a Michael Jackson fan. Everyone else was, but I wasn't. School life. Now, I did used to wear school uniform, and they were pretty strict at our school. So I had 2 different school uniforms for 2 different schools. So the first school was grey or black skirts, grey or black sweaters, or purple. And then our school tie was a purple tie with 2 gold stripes that would go down. And then when we went up to the last school, the big school, it was again grey or black skirt, grey or black tops, or you could wear, it was like a royal blue. It was a nicer uniform. And I think our tie was silver with blue and black diagonal stripes. And we used to try our tie as short. We used to wear it was only about this long. We'd do a thick, we'd wrap it round and do a really, really thick, chunky, I don't even know what that part of the tie is called. It's not a bow, obviously, but the big part up here. And then they'd have a tiny little bit. It looked ridiculous, but anyway, we thought we looked cool. I never used to eat school lunches. I always took sandwiches when I was in the lower school, but then when I went up to the bigger school, I used to take money and we used to go down the chip shop at lunchtime. And now I've got a subject here, it's called social life, and it says knocking on your friends' doors. That never really occurred to me that kids these days, they don't knock on each other's doors, do they? They just ring them up or text them, say, here, meet me here, meet me there. They don't go to the house and knock on the door anymore. I was always knocking on my friends' doors because I was always outside and I was always the first one out. So I was waiting on my friends to come out on a Saturday morning. That was a bit younger, when I was a bit more like 8, 9, 10 sort of age. But when I was a teenager, I was allowed to use the phone, but it always had to be a quick phone call. I wasn't allowed to sit there and just chit chat. And our phone was in the hallway. And my dad would time me. In fact, we had a little egg timer. He had to turn the egg timer over, and once all that sound had gone through, you better be off that phone. Because in England, every single phone call costs money, whereas in America, it's only out of state phone calls that cost money. So if you have a house phone still, which we haven't had a house phone in 11 years, yeah, we just have our cell phones now. But even if you called your next door neighbor or anyone in the same like telephone code as you, it was a free call and you could talk for hours and hours and hours and you won't get billed for it. But in England, you can call your next door neighbor and you'll get billed for it. Now, as a teenager, I did have a pen pal. She actually was someone that I went to school with in from the age of 11 through 13. But then she moved probably about 15 miles away from our town, and I wrote to her for quite a while, for a few years, and then, oh gosh, I think when we were probably about 19, we bumped into each other. We'd stopped writing by then, and we bumped into each other, and she was still living in the same town, so it was really nice seeing her. But other than that pen pal, I don't really remember writing letters other than a thank you letter at the end of summer. I would write one to my aunts saying, thank you so much for having me over the summer. Now, I did have a Walkman. My dad was very much into the latest gadgets. So we were the first to get a record player. We were the first to get an upgraded TV. I was the first in my class to get a CD player and a VHS player in my classroom. My dad was very much, he had to have the latest thing. So he did buy me a Walkman. I remember it vividly. It was a little silver one with a blue front and the little foam headphones that you listen to. They were only little like this. Of course, it got big, massive ones now. But yeah, I'd listen to my Walkman, and I had the blue and yellow roller skates, and we used to roller skate everywhere. We'd have our little Walkmans on, listening to our music, and then it would get to the end of the tape, and you have to hit stop, turn it over, put it back in, hit play again. But yeah, those were the best days ever. Another category is Saturday jobs. So my first Saturday job was at a record store, and then I upgraded and I got a fashion job at Miss Selfridge, which doesn't exist anymore, I don't think. If it does, it doesn't exist in Swindon. They moved out a long time ago, but I worked here in Miss Selfridge. Then I worked in Barrett's shoe shop. Oh, and then I worked in Dorothy Perkins. Those were my Saturday jobs. And I think I got paid £1 an hour. So I got £8 for 8 hours, and it'd be paid to me at the end of the day in a little brown packet. And I'd always spend it on either clothes or music. But my first job from the record store, I actually had a goal of saving money so I could go on a week's vacation to Snowdonia with my school. So my first experience of saving and being responsible with money was something that I wanted. And my mum said, yep, you can go on this week's vacation as long as you pay for it. And yeah, she lent me the money and I had to pay it back. What do I miss from the 80s? I wish everyone on this planet could go back in time for 1 week and experience the 80s. Everyone, like all the little children, everyone could go back. So there's no cell phones, you're watching TV, you're getting up, pressing the buttons on the TV, no remote controls, talking on a phone, doing the dial thing, going around calling for your friends, knocking on the door. I wish everyone could experience that. Playing outside in the street, hanging outside, neighbours talking to one another in their front gardens across the front walls. I think it's good to have instant information. Like, I love my Google. I speak to my Google and ask Google questions all the time, like every day. However, I think there's too much information shared around the world, you know. So I think when I was about 15, I was addicted to a song by Yazoo. It's called Move Out. And I bought the 12-inch version, and I must have played that over and over and over non-stop for at least 3 weeks until I was sick of it. And there was another song, it was called Tour de France, and it had a really good stereo effect because it was like someone cycling in the Tour de France and they were heavy breathing, and it would come out of one speaker, then it would come out of another. And I just thought that sounded so fantastic in my bedroom. My speakers were on either end of my bedroom. But I can't remember who the group was for that, but that was, yeah, another song that I played on repeat. And then another one that I bought was Culture Club, but I can't remember which one it was. I can remember the album cover. It was black and he was like painted with a grey face, if I remember rightly. One thing I did used to love doing in the summertime was when my family went to the pubs, sitting out in the pub garden and being brought out a shandy and a packet of crisps, and you felt so grown because you had a beer. So if you were a teenager in the 80s, what's the one thing that you remember most? And if you wasn't a teenager in the 80s, what would you have liked to experience the most? I was just sat here thinking, wouldn't it be great to have a summer camp for us adults that are, you know, 50s, 60s, to be able to go back and experience just a week of summer camp of the 80s. Oh, another thing, I used to love watching movies that were set in America when I was a teenager, and they used to go to these summer camps, and there'd always be a lake, and they would always have a rope swing that they could just swing and land in the lake. And of course, us British kids, we had nothing like that, but that would have been so much fun to experience. Yeah. So anyway, that's my little memory lane chit chat. I hope you enjoyed it. If we could only turn back the clock, eh? Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and hitting the hype button. So please now pop over to Tina and Maria's videos, because of course they're older than me, so they're going to have different memories in a different era to me. So they might match your teenage years. Thanks so much. I'll see you on Monday, not Friday, Monday. Bye for now.